from Jos to help put some perspective on some of these developing issues today on the program. Excellency, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Daybreak. I believe congratulations are in order. What can you tell us, first and foremost, about that verdict and what it means for not just your administration, but for Plateau State?
Thank you, my brother, for bringing me on to Trust TV. This victory at the Supreme Court, I think, is a victory not just for Plateau State, is a victory for Nigerian democracy, is a victory for the return of belief and trust in the Nigerian judiciary, is a celebration of hope that democracy will survive in Nigeria and that the courts are there to be able to protect democracy. For us on the Plateau, it's also a celebration of the importance of protecting the rights of voters. We are the people the people voted for. I am the governor the people voted for, with all sense of humility. And what the Supreme Court has done is to respect the wishes of the voters.
Your
the victory at the Supreme Court is also... Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, Your Excellency.
Yes. Also, what this means to the people of Plateau State is that it has given them hope that the government they place hope in, that their hopes have not been dashed. Therefore, we want to thank sincerely the people of Plateau State. We thank the judiciary. We thank Nigerians for insisting that the right things be done. And I'm glad, I've always said it, that we must also be grateful to Mr. President for restraining himself from intruding into the judicial arena. I think it is good for Nigeria.
All right, Your Excellency, as Ahmed said, congratulations are in order. But given this opportunity, we cannot also fail to reflect on the incidences a couple of days leading to this judgment, the one that puts Plateau on a very sad pedestal. The attacks on the eve of Christmas, the killings, the allegations, and counter-allegations, the visits of the vice president and also the service chiefs and the defense ministers. What is your assessment of some of the interventions that have taken place since that attack? And are we confident that those assessments are sufficient enough to forestall a repeated attack on the Plateau? And what are the structures going forward that you are putting in place to respond adequately to some of these attacks should they rear their heads again?
Yes, thank you. The attacks were quite unfortunate. It is not something to be celebrated, but we are grateful to the federal government for the response, which came immediately with the visit of the vice president, the chief of defense staff, the national security advisor. Also, the inspector general of police followed up subsequently. The minister of defense also came. We are grateful, and the service chiefs. So we want to, since then we've swung into action in trying to make sure we mobilize all the resources and assets at our disposal to bring succor to the displaced people. And also we are looking after those who are injured in hospital. And then we're also trying to see how to secure some of the communities where these people were displaced from so that they can return to their communities as soon as possible. But very importantly, the security agencies are on the trail of some of the suspects behind these dastardly attacks. and I'm been informed by the security agencies that a number of arrests have been made. A lot of investigations are going on by all the key security agencies, and I'm very hopeful that this time around we're going to make a difference by ensuring that those who are found culpable are charged to the appropriate courts, duly prosecuted, and if found guilty, given the appropriate sanctions.
Okay.
It is important that we do this. If not, these criminal tendencies will continue to flourish.
Right.
Beyond that, I want to also commend NEMA for the interventions they have made so far. We are trying to ensure that all the relief materials that are brought, that are judiciously utilized for the benefit of those who have need of them. I must also commend the international organizations led by the UN organizations, UNICEF, WHO, and the rest of them, who have also come in quite handy to assist the distressed people. So it's an ongoing thing in every respect, both in terms of the management of the post-attack crisis, the investigations going on. We hope that all that is going on will be able to close this ugly chapter and hope that it doesn't occur again.
Governor, for most people, governors over the years have made us believe that as chief security officers of their states, they have limitations that doesn't allow them or that don't allow them to deploy certain mechanisms to prevent attacks like this or even manage situations like this. From your perspective, I mean, in the wake of these killings, you've talked about, being aware that, some of these people were hibernating at a secondary school for a very long time. Give us a sense of what is happening right now. Is the Plateau state government still an onlooker in the push to address some of these security gaps that exist in your state?
Yeah, thank you. The debate will continue as to who should be in control of the forces on ground. The governors would always tell you that, which is true, that while we have forces on ground, the governor does not have direct control over the security agencies. They are still answerable to their bosses in Abuja. And that places a bit of limitation on the governor, because if they have different perspectives from the ogas at the top in Abuja, it makes the management of the situation on ground a little bit challenging. But having said that, managing the forces on ground also requires a great deal of man management skills by the governor. So I wouldn't say that a governor is totally helpless. I have been able to develop the right kind of relationship with the commanders on ground, and we are trying to make sure that we come on the same page in understanding both the remote and immediate causes of these issues and how to be able to put heads together. So it's about leadership, really. And by the grace of God, we're improving on this every day. And I want to commend the commanders I have on ground so far. They're doing their jobs. There are areas where we can improve, certainly. But beyond that, we are also trying to ensure that the communities themselves are sufficiently conscientized and mobilized to be able to defend themselves. Because the security forces can only come in and go. The people still remain in their localities.
All right.
And they form both the first and the last line of defense.
All right.
But let me use this occasion to dispel the insinuations of some very wicked, irresponsible people who are spreading falsehood that the state government has any militia. What we have, the security local vigilante called Operation Rainbow is being supervised by the police and all the security forces. And they are the people responsible for the training of these people. and we have never done anything hidden. Therefore, when I hear some people making insinuations about Operation Red, it is politically motivated, it is irresponsible, it is wicked, because they don't carry arms. These are people who simply are vigilantes in their communities.
All right.
And these facts can be verified by the security agencies on ground.
All right, Governor, given your last comments about conscientizing the people on how to defend themselves, most Nigerians would say, how do you defend yourself against people bearing very sophisticated arms? Because each time these operations are carried out, it appears like an operation that was carried out by people who are prepared and the right personnel. And that leads me to the question, where are you particularly as a governor on the issue of state police? Why is it difficult for us to have that conversation? How genuine is the concerns around governors, the tendency of governors to mismanage the deployment of troops if you put that control in their hands? And what do you think we can do, to tilt that conversation in a manner that essentially helps us, to respond effectively to some of these concerns on ground?
Thank you. I am a firm believer in state police. Sincerely, I've had so many arguments about it, the tendency of governors to misuse their powers and so on and so forth. Look, we cannot continue to live in fear and refuse to face realities. Globally, security is a local issue. And unless we are able to bring it down to the level of the communities, we may not achieve much success. I do appreciate the fact that governors are human beings and can be able to misuse those powers. But if you look at it in places like America, they also have the federal police. The FBI, for example, is like a federal police. And so where the powers of state police are abused, there should be a mechanism to checkmate that abuse. So I think for effectiveness, we cannot run away from the issue of state police. We must look at it critically. All the talk about community policing by the Nigerian police force, I do not think it is effective, because the time span for dissemination of information and decision-making is very critical. Where you have a situation where there's an attack in the community and the police will be able to mobilize to counter it are 3-4 hours away, it doesn't make sense. So we must be able to bring it closer to the theater of conflict.
Right.
Now, my take is that the communities defend themselves in several ways. One thing we are trying to do beyond the kinetic solutions to this crisis is to develop both inter- and intra-community harmony. Because we are found that to attack the target community, they have passed through several communities. The communities of first contact that saw these people advancing, what did they do with the information? Did they raise an alarm? And so what we want to do is to promote the spirit of brotherhood, that we are our brothers' keepers. Information dissemination is key. And if we are able to pick these people from wherever they are coming, and we're able to disseminate it timeously, it will reduce the impact of these criminals on their target territories.
Right.
So I think there's a lot to be done, and we are doing it by the grace of God. I will continue to ensure that the communities are sufficiently conscientized to look out for one another. And so that will also give the security agencies the opportunity to come in as and when due. Their response time will be greatly reduced.
Okay.
And besides that, some of the terrains are very difficult. This is where we'll be working and collaborating with the federal government to see how we can be able to access some of these difficult terrains so that we can govern all the spaces that need to be governed and reduce the incursions of these terrorists.
Governor, just before we wrap up, two questions on the harmony that you're trying to engender across communities in Plateau. Over the past 2 decades, we've seen ethno-religious fault lines be weaponized in so many of these violent clashes that we've seen on the Plateau. What is your administration leveraging on to ensure that everyone on the Plateau who is interested in the growth and development of Plateau State as an indigene or as a visitor is committed to, to this particular move, so you can domesticate some of these ideas that, this homogeneous society can work together as one? And on the other side, the political, question is regarding what has happened to the National Assembly lawmakers, in your state, for instance. We understand the minority caucus in the House of Representatives is calling for some sort of punishment or punitive measures to be taken against, the judges that sat at the appellate court to deliver those judgments that took them out of office. What is your take on that as the quote-unquote only survivor of that particular development?
Yeah, thank you again, Ahmed. Let me say this, that the issue of, well, let me take the last one you mentioned, the issue about those who were victims of the perverse judgment at the appellate level of the court. The debate is ongoing. We'll continue to look at all the options available. There's a lot of discussions going on within the legal community in Nigeria. And let me say that within the framework of our present jurisprudence, there is no immediate remedy you can fall onto. But again, these are opportunities to develop the law. When we have a lacuna, we get to a point where we find that there's a lacuna in our body of laws. This is an opportunity to develop new thoughts on how to deal with these possibilities. If we are talking about disciplining the judges, we should also talk about disciplining the lawyers who misled the judges. So it shouldn't be a one-sided debate. I think we should look at it holistically. We should look at where lawyers know the principles of law that are well established and choose to go against it. Should they be left unpunished? These are questions we need to answer collectively. And my advocacy is that we must do all we can to reduce the stress in the electoral system so that the votes of the people can be respected. Now, on the first leg of your question, which was, please remind me again.
What is your administration doing to facilitate some sort of program that, counters against the ethno-religious tensions and fault lines in Plateau State that have been used over the years to weaponize these attacks?
Thank you. Now, let me say this, that those who have weaponized ethno-religious sentiments are elites. They are elites. I have discovered that the ordinary people are victims of elite manipulation. You find that when people are getting out of political relevance or seeking advantage, that there's a tendency to look for some kind of political oxygen to revive their dying fortunes. And this is what we must continue to checkmate. Where religious leaders go on their pulpits and make very, very inciting statements that, first of all, are not factual, we must condemn it in all terms. There's one recently circulating on the Plateau, which we have asked the security agencies to look into it critically, because those statements are not only inciting, they are irresponsible, they are wicked, because they are not based on facts. Now, what we are doing is to expose these elites for who they are. And I am a grassroots man, so I'm getting directly to the people and engaging them, educating them that we can live together in harmony. We must not allow these barriers of religion and ethnicity to hold us back. After all, Like you mentioned, these crises have persisted for over 2 decades. Nobody has benefited from it. So we cannot continue to do the same things over and expect better results.
All right.
By the grace of God, I am bringing in quite a lot of showing the ordinary people the way that we can be trusted as leaders to be able to ensure fairness, justice, and equity in all that we do.
All right,
this
Governor,
is the path that we intend to continue.
All right, Governor, before we finally let you go, I have this question I would like you to get your perspective on. Gradually, there seems to be a narrative that is gaining traction. Oftentimes when these attacks happen, there is a conversation around the ordinary citizens doing something to defend themselves. But thereafter, we see military authorities going in to confiscate whatever weapon is available for them to deploy in self-defense. So there is a growing narrative around the need to review our gun laws. As we have heard the Association of Gun Manufacturers say in the US, that the only way to stop the bad guy with a gun is to arm the good guy with a gun. What's your perspective around self-defense? What model do you think we should be looking at so that you don't sit and watch helplessly while your life is being ripped away by people who the state has not been able to stop from acquiring this sophisticated weapon and deploying on you without mercy?
Yes, thank you very much. On that, I will draw a very pragmatic line. We must be able to ensure balance. But we cannot just leave people to possess guns without control, without accountability. And so my own is that even if we're arming communities, there must be a registration process. We know who is holding what, where. But I must comment on what you said earlier. We have witnessed a lot of overzealousness by some of the security agencies, operatives on ground, who instead of cooperating with locals, when they find them sometimes with ordinary machetes, they confiscate them. And we have engaged their commanders to say, no, this is not right. You should be able to boost the morale of those who stand up to defend their communities and not arrest them. We've had a few excesses which we have reported to the authorities. But let me also say this, that the security agencies have been infiltrated by fifth columnists. This is a fact we must confront as a nation. There are many people in the security agencies who should not be there. They are agents of these criminals. And sometimes they even compromise their colleagues. And that's why you have a lot of ambushes, sometimes when these security agencies are going on operations. Therefore, the president must give a very firm directive to the security agencies that in the ongoing recruitment processes, diligence must be taken, diligence must be observed to ensure that wrong elements are not recruited into the armed forces, into the security agencies, but there must also be a mechanism to be able to fish out these bad eggs within the security services. It is only when we do that that we can ensure that there is professionalism and discipline and also some bit of empathy to the victims of these attacks. When you delay to respond to a distress call, and then you go upon later and begin to seize the weapons of those in the communities, I think it is a disservice to those communities.
Right.
So my take is that we must balance gun control, yes, but we must also be able to find a way. And this has to be a collective decision. It's not something that you just pass down the throat of the communities. Because if we are going to, any community will defend itself, it has to be a collective responsibility. And therefore, there is need for a lot of discussions around these issues so that we can find what is most workable in the circumstances in which we find ourselves.
Your Excellency, we're going to have to leave it here for now. Thank you most kindly for sharing your time with us this morning and for speaking to us on Daybreak on Trust TV. Thank you most kindly for your time. The legal battle is over. I suppose the next challenge now is to continue governance over the next 3 years and counting. Thank you most kindly for joining us, Governor Caleb Mutfwang.
Absolutely, Ahmed. Thank you, gentlemen, for this opportunity. And I'd like to assure you that with the love Plateau people have shown us, we owe them a debt of gratitude, which can only be shown, can only be repaid by good governance. This we promise to deliver.
Thank you very much for your time, Governor. All right, we've just been speaking to the Governor of Plateau State, Governor Caleb Mutfwang, who, this past week secured victory yet again at the Supreme Court as the substantive governor of Plateau State. And we did talk about a variety of things around the security on the Plateau, especially in the wake of all those attacks and counterattacks from Christmas to the New Year.